Chapter 2. Part 2. Will you go to her lecture? Zainab asked Rabia when Sabiha was out of earshot. No, I don't intend to. I can't digest such stuff, Rabia replied casually, gathering up her books. She was more liberal in her thinking compared to Umama, Javeria and Zainab, and not particularly inclined towards religion. I have heard a lot of praise for Sabiha, though, responded Zainab. Most certainly, Sabiha does speak very well, Rabia said. I have heard that. Her father is also associated with some religious organization, obviously, that would have some effect, Rabia added. And Mama was sitting at a distance, ostensibly studying her books, but could hear the conversation. She was grateful that they had not tried to drag her into the discussion. 3 days later, she made an excuse and went off at the specified time to hear Sabiha's lecture. Zainab, Rabia and Javeria had decided to stay away from the lecture, so Umama changed her mind and decided to go, but did not tell them where she was going. Sabiha was somewhat surprised to see Umama. I'm very glad to see you here. I did not expect you to come, she said, greeting Umama warmly. This was Umama's first step towards changing her faith. During this period, she had read so much on Islam that, at least, she was not ignorant or uninformed about it. She was also well versed about the Islamic and Quranic injunctions about squandering wealth and being spendthrifts. Yet her real reason why she had accepted Sabiha's invitation was to cover the distance from her professed faith to Islam, a difficult task. And then, this was not the first and last lecture she attended. Week after week, she continued to listen to the lectures, hearing from another person the same things that she had read, left an impact on her. Her admiration and belief in Sabiha grew with time. Sabiha did not let Umama know that she had known about Umama's faith. It was about 2 months since she had started meeting Sabiha that there was a lecture on the finality of the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH. The Holy Quran is a book that was divinely revealed to Hazrat Muhammad, PBUH, began Sabiha, and in the Quran Allah declares that prophethood came to an end with Hazrat Muhammad, PBUH. There is no margin here for any other prophet to follow. If there is any mention of another prophet, like Hazrat Isa, returning to this life, it is not as a new prophet, rather, it is by Allah's will that a prophet appointed much before Hazrat Muhammad, PBUH, returns not for his own people but for the followers of our holy prophet, PBUH, who will be Allah's last prophet on earth. At no time in the past nor in the future has this seal of finality been given to anyone except Hazrat Muhammad, PBUH, so is it possible that Allah will withdraw what he has bestowed on one prophet to reward it to another? In the Holy Quran, Allah asks who is truer to his word than Allah Almighty. Is it possible that he should reject his own words? And if Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, himself is witness to his being the last and final messenger of Allah, then is it proper and justified that we should even entertain anyone else's claims to prophethood? Man is the only one of God's creations that has been blessed with the faculty of reason, and he can use this intelligence to search for evidence of God's existence. He does not stop there, his thinking extends to God's prophets. He seeks out the divine messengers and questions their message before declaring his faith in them. Despite the injunctions of the Quran, man searches for more prophets, forgetting that prophets are not man-made but appointed by God. Today we are in the last decades of human evolution when the course of prophethood has ceased because God has selected one faith and one prophet for mankind. There is no further need for any new faith, except to follow what has been sent, and not just to follow, but to practice this last and final faith completed with Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa, PBUH. Those who do not hold fast to Allah's bonds and, instead, spread dissensions, will be in loss. What difference would there be then between us and an animal that breaks away from its herd to chase a bundle of grass? In this 40-minute-long lecture, Sabiha never once mentioned any other sect or belief. Whatever she said was relevant, the only irrelevant thing was about the finality of Hazrat Muhammad's prophethood, that he was the last divine messenger who died 1,400 years ago in Medina. During his life and since then, all Muslims have stood in his shadow as one community, and even today, he alone is our prophet and guide. There has not been nor will be any other prophet after him, and those who believe otherwise should take stock of their beliefs and clear their minds and hearts of the chaos they find themselves in. Umama used to meet Sabiha after every lecture, but this time she left swiftly without seeing her. Her mind was seething in confusion, and she came out of the college and began walking. She walked on for a long time, over footpaths, across the roads, on, not realizing how far she had come. She sat down on a bench by the canal. The sun was about to set. Out on the road, the traffic was crowded and noisy. She just sat silent, watching the water flow past. After a long spell of silence, she muttered to herself, "What am I doing to myself? Why am I going round in circles? What am I searching for and why? I didn't come to Lahore for this. I came here to study medicine, to become the best ophthalmologist ever. Why does everything come to an end for me with the word profit? Why?" She buried her face in her hands. "I have to get out of this. I can't focus on my studies this way. My problem should not be religion and faith, whatever was handed down by my elders. Right or wrong, should suffice. I won't go to Sabiha's lectures again, nor will I think about any faiths or prophets," she thought as she sat there. It was 8 p.m. when she returned. Rabia and Javeria were quite concerned. "I'd just gone to the bazaar," Imama told them with a drawn face. "Hey, Imama. You've come after a long time. Why did you stop coming?" It had been quite some time since Imama had been to Sabiha's and the lecture that was just about to begin. "I need to talk to you about some things." "I'll wait out here till you're through," said Imama, instead of replying to her query. When Sabiha came out of the room 45 minutes later, she found Imama strolling in the corridor. They went back to the room, which was now empty. Sabiha looked at Imama, waiting for her to begin. Imama was lost in thought for a while, then she said, "Are you aware of my faith?" "Yes, I am." "Javeria told me," Sabiha replied calmly. "I cannot tell you how frustrated I am. I feel like running away from this world." She held her head. "I know that." She stopped midway again. "But I cannot give up my faith. I'll be destroyed, my parents will kill me. My career, my dreams, all will be lost. I have even stopped praying, but I don't know why I cannot find peace. Please try to understand my situation. I feel all this is wrong, but I don't know what is right." Imama, accept true Islam. Sabiha's response was this one statement. "I can't do this. I told you what problems I'll face." "Then why did you come to me?" Sabiha was very composed. "I don't know why I've come to you," she said helplessly. "You came because you wanted to hear just that one sentence. I cannot give you any justification. You are not in search of any answers because you know them. You just have to accept the truth, isn't that so?" Imama's eyes were brimming with tears. "I feel as if the earth is slipping away from under my feet, as if I am floating in space." Her voice was choked. Sabiha did not reply, she was reading Bismillah. Imama wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "There's nothing, Sabiha. I can see nothing," she said looking at her. "La ilaha illallah." Sabiha began to recite the kalima softly. Imama sobbed, her face covered by her hands as she repeated the words after Sabiha. "Muhammad, you are Rasul Allah," she said next, her voice close to breaking. Imama was unable to comprehend why she felt so tearful. She had no regrets, she was not unhappy, yet she could not control her sobbing. When she did stop after quite a while, she found Sabiha sitting there, and looked at her with a teary smile. Rabia and Javeria stared at each other in shocked silence. Imama kept drawing patterns on the floor with her foot, lost in thought. Javeria broke the spell. "You ought to have told us all about this earlier on." Imama looked up at her serenely. "And what would that do? At least we would not have had such misgivings about you. We could have helped you." Imama shook her head and in a strange tone, replied, "That would have made no difference." Javeria moved closer to her and spoke gently. "I am very happy that you have made the right decision, Imama, that you've turned away, better late than never, from a wrong path. You have no idea how I feel about this." Imama looked at her quietly. Javeria continued, "If there's anything we both can do for you, then don't hesitate to ask us, we'll be only too happy." "I will need your support, a great deal," Imama replied. Is it because of me that you have taken this decision and changed your faith? Javiria was saying. And Mama looked at her, surprised. Because of you, she thought. Her mind clouded and a face began to emerge from that fog like someone surfacing from water. And Mama smiled as she recognized the features and heard the voice. To him who begs for a drop, you grant the seas. Just don't let anyone else know about this. Not even Zainab, Javiria, and Rabia nodded in agreement. Por QEDSE Jo Karahun Ti Tara Hai Karam, if I stand tall today, it is your mercy. Muj Ko Jakni Nahi Dita Sahara Tara, for your support lets me not waver. She knew this voice, she knew this face. It was Jalal Ansar's. A few days after Amama had joined the medical college, she called Zainab in Lahore when she had come home to Islamabad for a weekend. Hold on, child, I'll call Zainab, her mother had received the call. As Amama waited, she heard a well-known poem in praise of the Prophet, being recited in a male voice. Whoever it was, there was a passion in his recital. Quatre mange joyeux to use Daria de day, to him who begs for a drop. You grant the seas. Muj ko kuchur na de abdi tamina de day, and I ask you for nothing but your love. She had no idea that a man's voice could be so beautiful that it could cast a spell over all. Mama stood awed, as if she had forgotten how to breathe. Lag Kate Hain Kusaya Tir Paikar Kan Nada. The light of your frame never cast a shadow, they say. Mita Kata Hun Jahan Bar Pi Hai Saya Tara. But I say the universe itself is in your blessed shade. In human lives, some moments are blessed, like that auspicious night in Shab-e-Qadr / the night of power, which some people carelessly allow to slip away. But some wait patiently, hands raised in prayer, begging for his blessings. This is the awaited moment that stills flowing waters and makes still waters flow, that turns the unspoken prayer into fate. This blessed point of time came into Amama Hashem's life not during the night of power, nor had she stretched her hands to heaven in prayer, yet the earth and stars stood still in their course. The cosmos was a dome where just one voice echoed. Das Jiri Mary Tan Hai Ki Tu Ene Hai to Ki, sole companion of my solitude. Mita Mar Jada Agar Saf Na Hoda Terra. But for your succor, I would no longer be, Wa Anharan me be Duranig User Jade Hain, undaunted, they cross the darkness. Jean Kamath P. Chamta Hai Satara Terra, whose brows are illumined by your brilliance. The voice was strong and clear. Imama sat mesmerized, the receiver held to her ear. Hello Imama, it was Zainab. The man's voice disappeared. The earth that had stopped began to spin again. Hello, Imama, can you hear me? She was jolted back to life. Yes, I can. That's better, I thought the line had dropped, Zainab said with some relief. Imama chatted with her a while, but her mind was engaged somewhere else. Jalal Ansar was Zainab's older brother. Imama knew about him, but they had not met. Zainab and Imama were classmates and first met when Imama joined college. Their acquaintanceship grew, and so Imama got to know about her family, that they were 4 siblings, and Jalal was the eldest. He was doing a house job as a doctor. Zainab's father was an engineer in Wapda, and their family was quite religious. On her return from Islamabad, Imama said, Zainab, that night when I'd called, there was someone reciting a knot in the background. Who was it? She tried not to be too curious. Oh, that was Jalal Bai. He was practicing for a knot competition. Our phone's in the corridor, and his room was open, so you must have heard him, she explained. He has a very nice voice. Yes, he does. His recital of the Quran is even better than the knot. He's won many prizes for his recitals. He's going to participate in a competition in college, you must come. Zainab did not know then about Imama's religious leanings. She was very careful about Purda, so Zainab thought Imama too was from a conservative background like herself. 2 or 3 days later, without informing her friends, Imama bunked classes to attend the knot competition. That was when she saw Jalal Ansar for the first time. He was a bearded young man, about 25 years old, and resembled Zainab. Imama's eyes followed him as he rose from his seat and came on stage to take his place at the rostrum. Eyes closed and arms folded across his chest, he began reciting. Your admirer asks nothing from the kings. For the dust of your tracks is my greatest reward. A current seemed to run through Imama. There was pin-drop silence in the hall where only his voice echoed, casting a spell. She did not notice when he finished and came off stage, who came next, what the outcome of the competition was, or when the last student left the hall. After a long time, the realization hit her that she was the only one sitting there. I heard your brother recite yesterday, she told Zainab. Really? He won the first prize, Zainab smiled. After a pause, Imama replied, it was a beautiful naat. He has been reciting the Quran and naats since childhood and winning awards. Now he has lost count, Zainab said with some pride. The beauty of his voice lies in the depth of his faith and the passion with which he recites, she continued. He venerates and adores the Holy Prophet, beyond limits. He has never recited anything except the Quran and naats. Whenever asked to participate in other events, he says that the tongue that serves God and his messenger could never sing praises of anyone else. We love the Prophet, too, but I have not seen the kind of adoration that my brother has. He has not missed a single prayer in the last 10 years, and he completes the reading of the entire Quran every month. You've got to listen to his qairat, Zainab extolled her brother. Imama listened to her quietly, but did not ask any more questions. The next day, Imama just lay curled up in bed instead of getting ready for class. Don't you have a class? It's getting late, Javeria tried to awaken her. You run along, I'm not going, Imama said, closing her eyes again. Why? Not feeling good, said Imama. Your eyes are irritated, too red. Didn't you sleep well last night? No, and now, please let me sleep, Imama warded off more inquiry, and Javeria left for class. Imama had indeed not slept well. Jalal Ansar's voice kept echoing around her, and she could hardly focus on anything else. She kept repeating his name under her breath, wondering what attracted her so, why she could not dislodge him from her mind. Imama recalled Zainab's words as she stood by the window. The beauty of his voice lies in the depth of his faith and the passion with which he recites. He venerates and adores the Holy Prophet, Depth of faith, passion, the pain and sweetness of his voice, what was it that had moved her so? The world begins with the adoration of the Creator and ends with the adoration of his messenger, the Prophet Muhammad, she remembered. The thought plunged her into silence and deeper thoughts, as if she were descending step by step into herself, searching the dark void for some light, some guidance. What is it about the Prophet, that brings tears to the eyes of his devotees? That touches a chord in their hearts? Faith? Veneration? Passion? Why was I not moved to tears? Why did words of praise not rise on my lips? Imama's voice broke as she tried to recite the verses presented by Jalal. She cleared her throat and tried again, standing by the open window. Halfway, she stopped. It was Jalal's voice that haunted her, loud and clear, like a call to prayer. She felt a wetness on her face and realized that she was crying. Her fingers touched her streaming eyes. Confused, and covering her face with her hands, she sank to the floor and sobbed her heart out. The most difficult dilemma for a person is perhaps when his heart testifies to an inevitable reality yet his tongue will not proclaim it, when his mind screams an acceptance of the truth but he cannot bring himself to state it. Imama Hashim found herself at the same crossroads. The decision that had tortured her for the last 2 or 3 years had been made by a call, without searching or examining the basis of faith in the Holy Prophet, For years, she had heard praises being sung of their prophet, yet they never evoked such a response, brought no tears to her eyes nor softened her heart, but whenever she had heard, read or talked about Hazrat Muhammad, she found herself strangely moved, drawn towards him. Her resistance to Sabiha's lectures evaporated, and Jalal Ansar's voice was like a firefly leading the way. Your presence guides me in the material world. Though your abode is celestial, I am told. This was the beginning of a new journey for Imama. She went to Sabiha regularly, and participation in these gatherings reaffirmed her decision and dispelled her doubts. Change of faith was a grave decision for Amama, one that impacted every aspect of her life. She could no longer marry Ashad as he was not a Muslim. She had to distance herself from her family, sooner or later, as she could not live in an environment where the truths and principles of Islam were being blatantly distorted. She began to have doubts about the source of the funds that paid for her education, and that she received for her expenses. That life that had seemed like a fairy tale now appeared to be nightmare, though she herself had chosen this path. She was amazed at her decision to convert. She had prayed to the Almighty for courage and steadfastness, and He had rewarded her, but she was still young enough to fall prey to fears and suspicions. Amama, do not disclose your faith to your parents as yet. You should be able to survive on your own, then you can refuse to marry Ashad and tell your family about your conversion, advised Sabiha, when they discussed Amama's dilemma. I do not want to spend the money my father gives me, especially when I know that he has acquired his wealth by propagating a false religion. It would not be right to use such funds. That's right, but you have no option. It's better that you should complete your education so that you're no longer dependent on your father then. Even if Sabiha had not shown her a way out, Amama had no choice. She did not have the courage to give up her dream. It was 10 p.m. when he came out of the cinema hall and walked on, munching on leftover popcorn. Half an hour later, he rang the bell of a huge mansion. "Shall I serve dinner, sir?" the servant inquired. "No." "Milk?" "No." He walked to his room and shut the door. Switching on the light, he aimlessly turned over the books and papers scattered around. Then he went into the bathroom and taking a new razor blade from the shaving kit, he came and sat on his bed. He turned on the bedside lamp and switched off the main lights. Very carefully, he unwrapped the blade and then with a swift sharp move, sliced across his right wrist. A whimper escaped him, but he clenched his lips. He tried to keep his eyes open as his right arm drooped over the edge, blood flowing in a steady stream onto the carpet. His mind seemed to fall into a vortex from which sudden explosions jolted him. The noise increased and he opened his eyes, but he could not make any sense of it. She was rudely awakened from sleep. "Amama! Amama!" It was Wasim, shouting out her name and loudly banging on the door. "What is it? Why are you shouting?" She opened the door to find Wasim in a state of panic. "Do you have a first aid kit?" "Yes." "Why?" She felt the ground slipping away. "Just get it and come with me. Choo-Choo has tried to kill himself again." He slashed his wrist. "Their servant is downstairs. Come on." And Mama suddenly sighed in relief. "Your friend belongs in a mental hospital, considering his behavior," she said with annoyance as she picked up her dupatta and followed Wasim. "I've just seen him, he's still conscious," said Wasim as they came down the stairs. "You should have taken him straight to the hospital." "That I'll do, but at least bandage his wrist so that the bleeding stops." "I can't do very much, Wasim. God knows what he used to cut his wrist. Anyway, where's his family?" Amama asked. "No one's at home except for the servants. They came to tell him about a phone call and finding no response, they broke down the door." Amama tried to say something about Salah, but Wasim turned around angrily. "For God's sake, can't you stop your comments? His condition is serious, and you go on maligning him. I have no sympathy for people who do such things." They were now in Salah's house and, shortly, entered his room. Amama stopped in the doorway, shocked. The entire room was plastered with life-size posters of half-nude models, almost as if they were actually there. She blushed and the injured young man on the bed fell further in her opinion. The posters reflected the shallowness of his character and were a source of embarrassment for Amama because of the presence of other people in the room. She quickly moved to the bed where Salah Sikandar lay. Wasim tightly held his wrist, covered with a corner of the bed sheet, to staunch the bleeding while Salah, half-conscious, tried to wrest himself free and at the same time attempted to talk to Wasim and the servants. "Look at his wound," Wasim said, as he held out Salah's wrist. Amama sat down and removed the sheet. The cut was long and deep. Salah again yanked his arm, but Amama's grip was firm. "Wasim, get me the bandage from the kit. The wound is too deep, we can't do anything here, he needs to be taken to the hospital." I'll bandage his wrist to control the bleeding, she said. Salah jerked his head and tried to open his eyes. Everything was shrouded in a mist through which he saw a girl holding his arm very firmly. Agitated, he tried to pull his arm away, but a current of pain shot through. He felt almost as if he would die, but the next minute he again tried to free himself. Who the hell are you? Go away! Get lost, he faltered despite his anger. This is my room. How dare you enter it? You're Wasim, get out. Just get lost, bloody bastard, he shouted, stumbling over his words. And Mama heard him abuse her brother, but did not let go of Salah's arm, and in spite of his thrashing around, managed to bandage his wrist. Through the fog, Salah felt something gentle around his wrist. Once again, he attempted to release himself using his left arm to pull away, but he failed. His arm hit the girl's head, her dupatta slipped away, and her hair fell open. She held onto his wrist with her left hand, and her right hand slapped him sharply across his face. It was such a stinging blow that he came to for a moment to see her face, red with anger. If you make another move, and I promise that I'll slash your other wrist too, do you hear me? She shouted. Salah heard Wasim say something too, but he couldn't make out his words. As he lost consciousness, he heard a female voice, check his blood pressure. He suddenly remembered the slap on his face, and tried to look up. He heard the girl's voice again, but the words escaped him as he slipped into darkness. The next time he came to, he was in a private clinic. He opened his eyes to look around. A nurse was present in the room, adjusting the drip. Salah saw her smiling, and tried to say something, but once again, he faded into the dark. He could not recall when he regained consciousness the second time, but he found himself surrounded by familiar faces. His mother came close as he opened his eyes. How are you feeling? Just fine, he replied softly, looking at Sikandar Usman, who stood at a distance. Before she could say more, a doctor in the room came up to check his pulse. He gave Salah an injection and gave him another drip. Salah watched the proceedings listlessly and turned his eyes to the ceiling as the doctor spoke to Sikandar Usman and his wife, Tayyaba. There was absolute silence in the room. Sikandar and Tayyaba sat, despondent. Despite their best efforts and precautions, Salah had attempted suicide the fourth time and had nearly succeeded. A few minutes' delay would have been the end of him, the doctors said. Sikandar Usman and his wife had been informed about Salah by the servant at 2 in the morning. In their desperation and anxiety, they could hardly sleep, and Sikandar must have smoked more than 100 cigarettes till they caught the morning flight from Karachi to Islamabad. I fail to understand why he does this. All our guidance, our counseling have had no effect on him. It seems my mind will explode when I think about him. What have we deprived him of? What have we not given him? All the luxuries, the best education, I even took him to the best psychiatrist, and yet this is the result. Where did we go wrong, that we should be punished so? I'm the laughingstock of my friends and acquaintances. Sikandar was deeply worried. He walked a knife's edge as far as Salah was concerned, and a moment of neglect had ended in this mishap. Tayyaba wiped her tears. Now in the hospital, they were at a loss for words, but Salah recognized their state of mind and welcomed their silence. However, 3 days later they confronted him. Just tell me why you do such things, Sikandar asked him with equanimity. What is the problem? You had promised not to behave like this. I even got you a sports car as a reward. Yet you seem to have no regard for us or your family's position. Salah sat unresponsive. If nothing else, at least think about us, your parents, pleaded Tayyaba. If there's a problem, share it, discuss it, but for God's sake, don't try to take your life. Have you ever considered what would have happened to us if you had succeeded? Salah listened to them impassively. This was nothing new, it was the usual dialogue after every failed suicide attempt. Why are you silent? Haven't you understood us? Tayyaba was frustrated and angry. You seem to get a kick out of humiliating your parents. They used his achievements and his potential as an incentive to evoke a response, and Salah thought, here they go again, he yawned. Finally, he spoke. What can I say when you've said it all? My life is a personal matter for me, and I'd told you earlier that I did not intend to die, Sikandar intervened. Whatever you intend, don't do it. Have pity on us. Just say that you'll not do such things again. Please stop, Tayaba implored. Very well, I won't, replied Salah, to free himself of their pleas and despair. Sikandar and Tayaba were not convinced, but they had little choice. They had always been so proud of Salah, yet he alone had given them more worries than all their other children together. What happens next? Wait for the next part. Thank you.